What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of It's a Blast podcast. My name's Mike, also known as the EOD Happy Captain on X. Today, I'm sitting down with Rob Evans, the creator of an app called Hots and Cots that allows service members to review the facilities where they live. If you like the content that I'm producing, please like and subscribe and leave a review. Let's get started. Welcome to the It's a Blast podcast. My name is Mike. Here, I talk to members of the veteran and military community about their leadership style and how the military has affected their lives. Let's get started. What is going on? I am sitting down with Rob Evans, the creator of Hots and Cots, an app that provides accountability for barracks and dorms across installations across the force. Rob, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to have you here. I really like what you're doing with the app. I like the fact that we're, allowing service members to provide reviews, a very like Yelp style review for their facilities where they live and where they sleep and where they eat. Can you give me a brief synopsis of what is Hots and Cots?
Yeah, so Hots and Cots started off as a way for soldiers, and not just soldiers, service members across all branches to review their dining facilities and barracks or dorms if you're maybe in the Air Force or Space Force. So to be able to review those facilities for the good and the bad, what works well, what's not working, and kind of bring attention to that stuff. And then also to give other soldiers that might be going to a new installation an idea of what they're going to get. Because you never know when you're going to go to a new installation what maybe the best dining facility is, or what barracks are going to be the good ones or the bad ones.
Yeah, I mean, and so on its face, it seems like it's been staring us in the face this entire time. Like, what a great concept to have service members be able to review where they live, but also it's never been done before, right? So, what sparks the idea to do this?
A couple things I wanted. So since I've gotten out, and even when I was in a little bit, I was still actively involved in the military community on Reddit, trying to help soldiers out where I can. And I was aware of kind of what dining facilities were doing, great and not so great, in barracks and such. And then the GAO report came out, and I just wanted to find a way to kind of give back when I got out, and to kind of go the next step to give back. And Hots and Cots gave me an avenue. A friend of mine that I know, Kinman, he kind of suggested, like, hey, now's a good time to kind of do this app idea that we were kind of brainstorming around with. And so Hots and Cots came about that way, is just kind of through a series of events, I guess you could say, that led up to the catalyst.
Yeah, so the 2023 Government Accountability Office report on barracks, for the listeners and viewers that aren't very familiar with what that is, what did that have to say about where our service members are living?
It's rough. It's rough if you haven't read it. Not everybody's, even people it's long, so I can understand maybe not everybody want to read that, and it can be kind of dense. So it talks about the terrible condition, the bad conditions, whatever you want to call it, that Army soldiers are living in with their barracks. It did touch on other branches, but that report was focused strictly on Army. So it talked about the mold situation, situations where maybe doors and windows are broken out and not locking, you can't secure buildings, air conditioners not working, or some of the few. There's some other really egregious things in there when you get down and you're really reading about some of the things soldiers have to deal with. Talks about how the funding, what the DoD requires soldiers to have when they're living conditions. So that's kind of the very high points of it.
So Rob, looking at the GAO report, I mean, it feels like in a lot of ways, who's accountable for the barracks? Is it leaders? Is it the soldiers that are living there? Is it DPW? Because reading the report and, being online in the Reddit space, it seems like it's the Spider-Man meme, right? It seems like everyone's pointing their fingers at each other saying, well, this isn't my fault, this is your fault. And in the process of that, we've lost, it feels like, some of the accountability. What's kind of your take on it? Who's responsible for this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's something that before I started Hots and Cots, I was like, why aren't leaders doing anything? Like, what is so hard about this? But as I've gotten into this and I was reading more into the GAO report, it talked to leaders, it spoke to leaders, and some of the leaders were like, I'm trying to get this stuff fixed for my soldiers. I know this is an issue for my soldiers, but I'm getting roadblocked by somebody. Now it doesn't say who it is, but they're getting, even leaders are getting kind of hemmed up in trying to get some of these issues resolved. Um, I've talked to one installation, and one installation's like, I want stuff posted on Hots and Cots because we want to get funding to get these barracks fixed. We know these barracks are terrible. Um, and so we want them on there. We want to bring attention because we want them fixed. So, but then there's also soldiers I talk to, and they're like, well, DPW came in, they just said I need to wipe it down. And they're saying, I'm not doing my part in this. I'm not cleaning my room, or I'm not necessarily my room. I'm not cleaning the vents, or so it's kind of even at that level, they're all pointing still. It's like, where's the breakdown? Like, we have the GAO report talks about $14 billion that were set aside for repairs across the different services on repairing barracks and such. It's like, well, why can't we figure out, why can't we have the money? Why can't we get this stuff fixed?
Yeah,
So I don't
and
know. I wish I knew.
No, I mean, and it's. I think if we knew the answer to that question while we're talking right now, right, we would we probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
If we could fix the issue, I know during sequestration, when DPW went through major cuts, when barracks started only getting funded, barracks maintenance only started getting funded to 85%. Those are things that are now trending back in the right direction, right? Barracks are getting funded for maintenance back to 100%. And so, it seems like a lot of the issues are that it went unchecked for so long, right? Maintenance is only good if the maintenance and upkeep is happening, but when it doesn't happen for even a couple months, you start slipping down this slide of we're now in disrepair. It's interesting watching where it's going. It's interesting reading Reddit reports or Reddit posts where exactly what you said, right? Where a soldier says, hey, I called DPW to get this fixed. DPW said, this is my fault. I wiped down the mold. They closed the work order. Lo and behold, a week later, I have the same work order again. My leadership is involved. My leadership cares, but it's not
Yeah.
getting fixed, right? And it's just kind of frustrating as a leader to watch that stuff happen. What positive outcomes have you seen from Hots and Cots from making those types of reports?
Yeah, it's been really positive. So when I started Hots and Cots, I heard there were haters. They were like, "Oh, leadership isn't they're gonna shut this down. They're gonna come take your app." Like, it was there were some negative folks about it, about how this app was going to progress. But it actually was quite the opposite. I've had a great outpouring of support from leadership, behind the scenes, that just want to remain anonymous, and those that have been outright helping. Command Sergeant Major over at Seymour over at Liberty, he's been in my DMs. We've been chatting, and I know if I see an issue, I can go to him. He's been super helpful. A couple weeks ago, we had an issue where a soldier got BAH on the spot because of the mold in his room. And who knows how long he'd been living with that and what type of issues he was having. I've been working with JBLM and the garrison team over there. We've been able to get issues resolved. I work with the NCO and the boss team, Sergeant Weston. She's been great. I know I can go to her. And then most recently at Fort Carson, the kiosks have been a big topic of discussion lately.
Right.
And we actually had Lieutenant Colonel Payton, myself, and another colleague of mine. We sat down with him and his team, and we talked about the feedback we were seeing from soldiers. It was very positive. He was very open to getting feedback on what's happening with what we're seeing in the online community. There was an issue where a soldier said, "Why can't I get milk and yogurt? Why are these both classified as dairy products?" I shot a message off to Lieutenant Colonel Payton, and within minutes, he's like, "All right, this is fixed. You can now get yogurt and a milk as a beverage." Like, it was that easy. So it's been great support from leaders, and I love seeing that. I know it's great also seeing that there are leaders that care and they want to make these improvements.
Yeah, watching the Fort Carson stuff play out in real time on social media and kind of seeing, hey, the kiosks are empty, and then watching that chain of events occur, on X where leaders are getting involved and messages are getting shot off. And I know for the soldier in the moment, like, it's not good, right? You went to go get food. There's no dining facilities open. You go to the kiosk and the kiosk is empty, right? But it looks like, Fort Carson and Fourth ID were very transparent with the issue. did a restock pretty quickly. And I'm looking at their Twitter and social media right now, showing like, hey, they're getting after it. So like it seems like there is some reception from the organizations to make these things better. But can you kind of talk about, well, why was that an issue even to begin with, right? Why did Fort Carson, why did these kiosks run out of food to start with? Do we have an answer for that?
So I don't. What I can say, here's what I know, and I can talk on that. So whether you like, I think everyone has their opinions on what kiosks and replacing DFACs, and I
Right.
think the Army's made their decision. And you can either kind of lean into that and provide feedback to make it better, or you can kind of just continue to be upset about it. I think you can make two different choices, and I myself, I'm trying to advocate to those soldiers and lean into it. Say, okay, the kiosks are staying, but we can give the feedback to make it better. My understanding on why the shelves kind of went empty, it was just, I think, a misunderstanding of how much soldiers will be attending. I also understand there were some units that were rotating in that had been out, so you had this maybe just basically a bad ordering supply and such. But they learned from that. They're learning from that. They're making sure they have more supply. They're making sure they have better contingency plans to make sure the shelves don't run empty. Um, I think they're also very open to feedback. When I talked to Peyton, he said, like, have the soldiers scan the QR codes, because there's QR codes all over the kiosks to give us feedback, which I think presents another problem. I think anyone who's been in the military is very hesitant of doing any surveys and providing any feedback because of repercussions, and that's a institutional change I think that might need to happen to be able to get honest feedback from junior soldiers. But we even talked about, like, we use Hots and Cots as an avenue for feedback. It's anonymous. I'm not going to share any information of who left what review, but I will give that feedback to them so they can make the improvements.
Yeah, and one thing I was really impressed with looking at, especially talking about the Fort Carson, the outpost, the kiosk, right? Looking at that is, you see the photos. It looks like a lot of prepackaged food. There was some complaints about that, but I don't think the message is getting out there enough about the pre-ordering, right? Of
Yeah.
legit decent meals. Can you talk about that a little bit and what's being offered there?
Yeah, so they're actually, I didn't even know about that until I got on the call. And which we asked them, like, why is that not being advertised more? Like, why is the kiosk getting the attention and not this pre-order food? Because I do think that's a great avenue. I think that's a great approach. So it was something they were kind of in line with the kiosks also testing these pre-order meals. They started with, I think, 350 for the first week, and then 420 the second week, and then this weekend, my understanding, they're supposed to do 1,000 of those orders.
And what are those pre-order meals?
So their meals prepared by by cooks. So it has your macro breakdown. I think they have like a light, medium, and heavy caloric intake. But it's legitimate food. So it can be chicken and broccoli, rice. So it's going to be an actual meal. It's not going to be something that you get in the frozen portion of the kiosk or maybe a salad. But it's a first come, first serve. You put your order in on Friday, and then if you get the order in and you're one of the recipients, then you can pick it up. And I think they're going to be expanding that out more in addition to the kiosks. So you have both to choose from.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was looking at some of the photos that they posted. We're talking like, sweet potatoes and beef and like broccoli and chicken. I mean, and just food that looks really, really good.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when we're talking about the kiosks and we're looking at the photos of people walking through them, we're seeing like the Otis Spunkmeyer, and the Quaker oatmeal ready to go,
Slim
right? Just
Jims.
a lot of gas station style food. So I don't think, even soldiers there might not be aware that there is the ability to make these orders. And if you're saying that we went from 350 on the first day to now 1,000, right? I mean, the message must be getting out there to the troops that, hey, this is available. This is going to be a thing.
Yeah. And a real quick on that other side of the kiosk, like, if you're seeing food that you don't like, give that feedback. Like, if you want to see something different, give the feedback, because that's how you get change to happen. Especially now in the early phase when they're rolling this out. They want to be able to adapt and help the soldiers out to be able to provide what they want.
So I saw on the app that you're expanding, right? As far as
Mm-hmm.
what service members are able to review. Originally, it was Hots and Cots. It was food, and it was dorms and barracks. It looks like now you're going over to some other facilities on the installation. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you're seeing there?
Yeah, so when I started it, I was, like I said, Hots and Cots was what I was doing. And then when I was on Reddit, kind of getting the word out about it, folks made asks for other things. Like some made asks for CDC, child development centers. Some have asked for the pharmacies, the medical clinics. So, and as I found out, Hots and Cots is a great platform from that. Like there's nothing like that in that space. So I decided, like, okay, let me try to expand this out. And then the Army Mom Life, actually, Nicole, call sign Cowgirl, she reached out to me. He's like, hey, would you be interested in adding lactation rooms? Sure, why not? Because moms serve also. Like, so,
Right.
and we know not all the units are kind of providing a space for those lactation rooms. So absolutely, that was like a no-brainer. So I added that in. There's been kind of conversations on whether I should do housing or not. I don't know if that's something. My thing is right now focusing on junior enlisted. I think there are some other groups out there like the Military Housing Coalition that does great in helping family housing issues. So that's kind of my idea of why I wanted to get into the other spaces. I also had a conversation with somebody else at the I'm going to leave them unnamed, but at the DoD level, and they're like, listen, you have an opportunity to really kind of make impact on some of these hospitals because they are really suffering as well, and this is a good feedback mechanism, a good platform for that. So that's why, and then I got into hospitals also.
I mean, I think, anytime a service member can anonymously, I think that's kind of the big one, right? Because as you kind of mentioned before, there is still a stigma about surveys, right? Throughout the military. If I say this, am I going to get a phone call or is there going to be some type of adverse, reaction, which, having spoken to senior leaders, I don't think is the case, right? I don't think there's a desire to go after soldiers when they make comments, but there is still some hesitation from service members to do that. So I think something like Hots and Cots, and I'm rocking the hat, right?
Yeah, it's a great hat.
I think there is a lot of benefit there where people can say stuff anonymously. It can get out there. I've noticed that you're taking the screenshots, the anonymous screenshots from Hots and Cots, and you're posting them on social media, and then getting a lot of interaction from senior leaders as well. Uh, the app has not been going for that long, but yet you already have points of contact at Fort Liberty, at JBLM, and now in the last week, it really sounds like, Fort Carson has been incredibly helpful and beneficial. What is kind of the hope for growing?
Man, so right now I'm doing this all on the side. So I have my full-time 9 to 5 job that I do, and then when the kids go to sleep and the wife goes to bed, or I'll get up early, I'll start working on some code stuff on the app. Like I would love to at one point maybe do this full time, like be able to be in a position to do this full time. Um, I think, and then also expand those relationships to other branches. It would be really phenomenal to be able to kind of have a mechanism. I think big picture, I would like to be able to have a dashboard so leaders can just go in and see the information themselves. Like I don't need to be that conduit. That's kind of where I'm at. I do want to circle back on a point you talked about the stigma and feedback, because I do have a real example of that. Because there was a tip, somebody came in onto the app and they reported something with mold, and senior leaders, like you said, I agree. Their senior leaders are there; they're wanting to make improvements. But it was a barracks manager who got really upset, and I got wind of that. This barracks manager went to go try to find this soldier, and go after him. I mean, because he didn't feel like the mold was an issue, although the garrison commander saw the mold and was like, "This is an issue." So there
Right.
is still there are still scenarios out there where there are unfortunately people that are in the military, or whether it's DPW or wherever, that do take offense to it.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, right, that we have, those people, especially as a barracks manager, right, who's supposed to be going out. I think, there's this thought process that you're given this barracks as a barracks manager and nothing can be wrong with it. But the Army understands that there are issues, especially when we talk about things like legacy barracks, right? Barracks that
Mm-hmm.
are historic sites, and therefore, because they were there during World War II, we're going to leave them up forever, right? And we're going to leave people living in them.
Yeah.
And, I remember Sergeant Major of the Army Daly talking about that, right? Just because it's a historic site doesn't mean people need to live there. But we're also seeing some awesome stuff. There was just a brand new barracks built out in Korea that just opened its doors. New barracks out in Fort Carson. So it does feel like, and from an Army standpoint, because I'm an Army guy, right? It does feel like the Army is more actively invested in this issue than I feel like they have been in years prior. Maybe that's due to social media. Maybe that's due to just, it's in the news cycle. But the barracks have historically been an issue, right? They were an
Yeah,
issue over a decade ago when I lived there.
we're also not at wartime either. I think we were at war for so long that I think there was a lot of focus and attention to that. My theory is when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan, we weren't prepared. I mean, I remember going in and I hearing stories of the first wave having sandbags because we didn't have up armored vehicles. And I feel like we're trying to now, the Army and the military are trying to stay a step ahead of everything so we don't kind of end up in that situation again. Um, and during that time, the barracks didn't get the attention they needed because of other needs. And I understand, like, we're at war, we're trying to move soldiers forward and kind of kind of keep control of battle spaces. So understandable. But now we're not at wartime. I mean, in theory, supposedly, um, we're not in that deep. We're not in Afghanistan deep. We're not deep into Iraq anymore. Like, so what? Let's use as this time now to make those improvements.
No, I mean, and that does make sense, right? Looking at, the barracks and different facilities, I've noticed a ton. I was in Baumholder, Germany for 3 years, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you didn't know, Baumholder, Germany was an installation that was supposed to shut down. Like it was supposed to go away. We were supposed to give it back to the Germans, the whole 9 yards. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, they made the decision, hey, we're going to keep this installation. Well, what happened there is during the time when it was going to shut down, a lot of maintenance stopped
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't going to maintain the installation.
Yep.
And then we decided we were going to keep it, right? Now, what I will tell you is they're building new barracks out there at Smith Barracks. They're revamping everything, but there was a period in time where service members were living, I had service members in the barracks, I had soldiers in the barracks, we go inspect them, and it was a real issue, right? I will say the DPW out there was incredibly focused on getting those issues fixed. It was just what we talked about at the beginning of the interview, right? There gets a point where you've let it go for just long enough where it's no longer you're maintaining, you have to do legitimate, deep rooted fixes to get the building back up to standard. But I will also tell you, being out in Germany, there's no air conditioning in those buildings, right? And Germany's starting to get really, really hot. And so the garrison commander, while I was there, took a look at everything and said, I tell you what, if you want to procure a personal air conditioning unit, you can do that, right? We will allow that if the temperature is between X and X. You can run personal ACs and it will not be an issue. So, that kind of comes full circle to saying we do have a lot of leaders out there that are very invested, that do care, that are aware of the issue. And, sometimes, unfortunately, it's a game of telephone, right? Up at the very, very top, they say we're going to do this. And then by the time it trickles down to the unit level, to the company level, that's sometimes where we see the message maybe didn't make it all the way. And
Yes.
those are the people, and those company grade soldiers are the ones that are living in the barracks, that are eating in the DFAC. Listen, I was a barrack soldier. I ate in the DFAC. I've experienced a lot of these issues. It's something that, if anybody on here follows me on X, it's near and dear to my heart, which is why I think your app is phenomenal, right? I really want to see it grow. If I can do anything to help project its growth, then I want to do that, because I think service members have a right to eat good food, to live in good barracks, right? And I say it all the time, maybe not on the podcast, but I say it all the time on X, which is like, the Army should be hard. It should be very
Mm-hmm.
hard. When we send people out to the field, it should be hard. But it should not be hard when it comes to matters of quality of life. It should not be hard, because I have black mold in my barracks. It should not be hard because I have to walk 6 to 10 miles to get to an open DFAC. It should not be hard because there is no DFAC that's open. And those are some issues that we've seen. And
Mm-hmm.
those are all quality of life issues, and those are all issues that play a role into retention and recruitment as well.
Yeah. I mean, when I made the decision to join the military and I look back on it, I think deep down inside of me, I joined for improved quality of life because I lived in not great situation, moving from house to house with my dad. Like it wasn't a great situation. So I'm sure I'm not the only soldier or only person that joined the military in a similar situation where they had that situation, maybe food insecurities. And then you think of, okay, I'm going to join the military, 3 hots and a cot, which by the way, not everybody knows what hots and cots mean. So hots and cots came from 3 hots and a cot, 3 meals a day and a place to sleep. Um, so you join the military wanting an improved quality of life, but then you get to your barracks and you find maybe a dead mouse, or you find a bunch of mold in your barracks that's going to be your new room, or you get to the dining facility and it's closed, or there's not enough food, or it's undercooked food. It's like, why did I join the military for this when I could have just stayed at home? Like, I didn't have to. So I think that is important for the aspect of quality of life. Like we want soldiers to have a good quality of life when they join the military, when they get to their place. But like I agree 100%. Like when you're in the field or your deployment, that's a very different situation. Like that's what you signed up for. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be great at times.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being a young E3, private first class, um, going through school, so EOD school, and the Air Force had given us these substandard barracks that they weren't going to put airmen in, right? And I signed for my room. I got there, and the wall looked like it had been painted black. Uh,
Oh,
and luckily enough, I had really good leadership, and I don't think they were aware of quite how bad that room was. But I took my keys back, to my platoon sergeant and said, "There's no way that I can live in here." Right? And they're like, "Well, it can't be that bad. The Air Force just gave these to us." And they went over there like, "Oh, okay, this is that bad, right?" And they condemned that room effectively and gave me a new spot to live. And but if I hadn't gone forward and said this is an issue, you know, then I would have lived there and no one would have been the wiser. Now mind you, that's
yeah,
over a decade ago. That is a long time ago that I went through EOD school, but you know, the issues still exist, right?
they do. I mean, there was a report somebody submitted on Hots and Cots. Their first room it was a dirty floor and a dead mouse, and they're like, go get a broom, we'll sweep it. Not, okay, let's get you a different room and pest control in here because there's apparently a reason there's a dead mouse in here. That NCO's response was like, we'll just get a broom and sweep it. But that soldier pushed back and they did get him a new room. And you kind of sometimes have to speak up for yourself, even though it is scary as a new PFC or a young private to speak up to an NCO or maybe a captain or somebody. So there is also that aspect, I think, as you progress in rank, sometimes forget about that it is hard to talk to those at a higher ranking. It can be scary.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, right? But it's also important for a lot of junior service members to remember that their leaders are people, right? We're just that. We're just regular people. A lot of them have lived in the barracks. I think one of the key takeaways, right, is just because the Army or the military was hard when you were in doesn't mean it needs to be hard for the people that are now
Yeah.
in. And I see that a lot, that message propagate on social media quite a bit when soldiers go forward or service members go forward and say, hey, my barracks isn't great, my DFAC isn't great. You get an older crew that's no longer serving that says, well, when I was in, my barracks sucked too. Well, like,
Yeah.
hey man, I'm sorry that happened to you, right? It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think we see that sometimes with, in the case of that soldier you were just talking about, where his NCO said, we'll get a broom, probably because when he was a young private or she was a young private, they were told the exact same thing. Like, that's just the way it is, right? And so we kind of have to break that paradigm
Hmm.
because it doesn't have to be that way, right? We have quality defects out there. You need to look no further than Fort Liberty, right? The Dragon's Lair. I watch the food that they're putting out all the time on there. It's top grade, right? It's quality stuff. We have quality barracks out there. The question is how do we get everybody to have quality barracks? How do we get everybody to have quality, consistent food from the defects? Yeah, look,
Yeah.
uh, I'm a huge fan of our culinary specialists. I think they work really, really hard. I don't think the average soldier realizes how hard they work. That's a job that, like, listen, I'm an EOD tech, and people are like, "How do you do that job? I would never want that job." That's how I feel about culinary specialists. Right? They're up before the
Yeah.
sun comes up. they're cooking nonstop. When the food is good, no one says anything. But when the food is bad, everyone says everything, right?
Yeah.
And then after you're done eating, they're sitting there scrubbing everything down and getting ready for the next day. That is a job that I have a ton of respect for. And so, like, you know, I get the transition to the kiosks, you know, whether I agree with it or not. I understand that's the direction the military is going. We do have a shortage of 92 Gulfs, our culinary specialists within the force, but they're doing great work, man. Like when they're doing great work.
They are, and they get. I mean, I've been around the internet enough, and I see what people say about cooks, and it is unfortunate. They do get a lot of hate, and they do a lot, especially for the food wise when it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, really love what you're doing with Hots and Cots. Super excited to watch it progress and watch it expand. I think, you know, we're starting to see it grow, right? It went from a couple reviews at a couple of installations to now, you know, seeing it posted on Reddit. I'm seeing it posted on Instagram. I'm seeing people post about it on X and Twitter. Like, the growth is there. I wish you nothing but success. If there's anything I can do to help it grow, Rob, thank you for what you're doing. Like, thank you.
I got one more thing, actually, real quick.
Hit me with it, man.
I want to throw it out there. So I actually am going to. So I'm going to be speaking at. This is kind of big. This is kind of a big announcement, and kind of unscripted. So I kind of touched on it briefly on an X, but it kind of, I think, went unnoticed. So I'm actually going to be speaking at ALA, in the ALA Expo. So it's the American Logistics Association. I don't know. Do you know what that is?
I do not know. Fill me in.
I didn't know what it was either. So it's basically the big expo every year that the DoD sends representatives up there. AMC will be there, and I'm actually going to be a speaker there speaking about Hots and Cots. So anything to deal with food and not barracks, but anything to do with dining facilities, food, the kiosks, anything food related for the Army and the DoD and military wide, they go there. So there's actually be several representatives from the DoD. There's going to be the general over AMC will be there, and I'm actually going to be presenting on Hots and Cots. So this is a great opportunity to say this is what's working for dining facilities and the kiosks, and this is what's not working. It's a great opportunity. So a great opportunity for soldiers and service members to kind of advocate and say, this is what we like at the kiosks, this is what we don't like. So leave a review. Tell me what you like and what you don't like on there, because this is a great opportunity that I will have the attention of the leaders that are making decisions on your food.
No, that's absolutely awesome. And I mean, there you have it, right? If you are watching this or you are listening to this on Apple or Spotify and you are in the barracks or the dorms, like, now's the time, right? Now's the time to have your voice heard as the military makes this transition over to the kiosks. That is a huge deal. As soon as I hang up on this with you, I got some information for you that I'll share with you as well, right? Okay. Hey, man, seriously, thank you so much for everything you're doing. You know, you don't have to do it, right? You're out of the military. No one has forced your hand to do this. I think what you are doing is going to make lasting and impactful change. So thank you very much. If you are not on Hots and Cots, right? If you are a leader who doesn't have the app, I highly suggest you get on there. It's in the Google Play Store. It is in the Apple Store as well. Go get Hots and Cots. If you're a leader, go see what your soldiers are saying about where they are living. And if you're a soldier, airman, guardian, Marine, right? Get on there as well. Sailor, forgot sailors, right? Get Coast on Guard. There as well.
They're on there.
Yeah, Coast Guard. Like, leave a review and let people know how you're living, how you're eating, how the facilities are on your installation. And who knows, it could make a huge change for those that come behind you. Rob, thank you so much for being with me today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.